Welcome everyone to the Analytic Mind podcast by Enterprise DNA. This is a podcast which dives into a range of different ideas and tips to empowering a data-led culture within organizations. We want you to develop the analytic mind to create immense value for yourself and your teams.
Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of the Analytic Mind. I'm joined by Nikola Ilic today. So Nikola is very well known around the data community, particularly online, and very excited to get him on the podcast today and discuss various things about various data-related topics. I think there's lots of things that we can go into. There's so much happening in the data world at the moment. It's just unbelievable. But before we get into that, why don't I just throw to you, Nikola? You just give us a bit more of a background about yourself, and then we'll just kick things off from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. First of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to join you for the podcast. And I'm a huge fan of Enterprise DNA. Since I would say, 3 or 4 years at least, I was watching your videos on YouTube, and I'm a huge fan of everything you do. And I appreciate all the work you've done for the community. So regarding myself, personally, maybe people don't know, but so maybe it's a good idea to start from there. So I'm from Belgrade in Serbia, but I live in Austria, in Salzburg in Austria, and that explains why I'm using this nickname Data Mozart, because I'm usually being questioned why Mozart. Am I a fan of classic music or stuff like that? No, that's because I live in Salzburg. That's a birthplace of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So when I started blogging and doing stuff in public, then I thought maybe it's a good idea to have kind of a nickname, and I couldn't come up with anything better than Mozart. So why not Data Mozart? There are no Data Mozarts, and that's basically how it all started.
I like that.
So my background, I used to work for a long time with traditional Microsoft's business intelligence stack, so SQL Server, SQL Server reporting services, integration services, analysis services, multidimensional, so those nice cubes. Had some short trips to World of Oracle and MicroStrategy, but I would say for most of my career I spent working with Microsoft's data platform products. Lately, mostly with Power BI and also Azure Synapse Analytics. So that's kind of my background.
Nice. And when did you realize the Microsoft evolution in the BI stack was they were onto something good? They were onto a real winner.
So at the very beginning, it wasn't my choice. So the company where I used to work for, they were using exclusively Microsoft solutions. And so basically I realized that it goes into direction where this is now, let's be honest and admit that Microsoft is undisputable leader, I would say, in this area. So I would say not just maybe when Power BI started, but even before that, with all these solutions in BI stack. And it's not just about a specific solution, it's about the integration of different products and components of this platform that I think Microsoft does the best job in this industry. So how different components of the platform are integrated and how you can benefit of having all these products working in synergy, I think that's the main strength of Microsoft's data platform. I wanted to say power platform, but it's data platform.
They've really built. It's really an ecosystem, isn't it? I always refer back to this. One of the execs at Microsoft said Power BI was the tip of the spear for your data initiatives, and that was like 7 years ago or something. And so it's really sort of played out like that, isn't it? There is a real ecosystem, and then when you see what is happening with the AI technology, and they've already announced they're basically going to integrate it into everything. Well, it's just such a strong ecosystem, isn't it? Like everything is just going to be supercharged with all these new AI initiatives that are happening, and going to enhance the productivity, the effectiveness of all of these technologies together.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just seen yesterday or 2 days ago, I can't remember, this new stuff in PowerPoint, for example, where you can use this latest AI features, as you mentioned, to like you write, give me a presentation on this and this, and it will generate the presentation for you, which is amazing. I mean, now it's PowerPoint. Probably in a few months or maybe next year, we'll also have, but we also have a lot of features already, AI features in Power BI. So I think that's kind of a direction that Microsoft follows. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, to be honest.
What are some of the in your line, like in the businesses that you've worked in or worked with? What are some of the big wins you could say you've achieved from implementing Microsoft's ecosystem of tools? I'm keen to just hear some examples of some big gains in productivity or analysis, or just some inspiration, I think, of what others can achieve with when you use these tools and you implement these tools effectively.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would split them maybe in two groups of achievements. So first achievement is when you modernize something. So you provide the client with some better and more optimal solution in terms of, for example, clients were using exclusively on-prem solutions. They migrated to cloud. They can scale better. They can quicker, react to some business challenges because of using cloud solutions. In other circumstances, it's simply choosing the right product between the whole palette that is on offering. So when we are talking about Microsoft itself, in data platform, there are dozens of different products that you can choose from, and not each of them is the right for your business. So depending on the amounts of data that you're facing with, that the number of users and some specific business requirements, it's very rewarding when you figure out that you found a proper product and proper solution for this client. So I would split them in those two groups, like modernizing and finding the right product within the platform itself.
Yeah, nice.
What's your experience on that? Yeah, I'm curious to hear.
Well, I was about to. That's a good segue actually into what I was going to just quickly touch on and get your thoughts on. The biggest gains that I see are productivity. Just the amount of analysis that you can do at scale is exponential if you utilize everything that's available to you in Power BI, but also the ecosystem around Power BI. Even if you just look at Power BI just by itself, you've got a way to automatically refresh data sources through data flows or through the gateway. You've got the ability to build centralized data models with data sets. You've got the ability to build various different reports that basically automatically refresh within reports that you can then aggregate up into apps, or you can use metrics. And then not only that, one of the strongest things about Power BI that I feel is data immersion, is the ability to distribute your insights so effectively to anyone, anywhere. That I think is one of the most underappreciated things about Power BI, because everyone just looks at it as like a visualization tool. That's how Microsoft have sold it in the past, but it's really a data distribution platform. That's just one part of it. It's an analytics platform, it's a visualization platform, it's a data engineering platform, but the distribution, the ability to push your insights at scale into a cloud-based system and then see it on the web, see it in Microsoft Teams, see it on your iPad, see it on your
mobiles,
iPhone. That to me is just huge. It's just huge. The ability to just have data in your everyday work, your everyday life. I think that is, it's hard to sometimes quantify that, but that is truly powerful. Like I just know that from our own internal data, our own experiences, just the ability to craft decisions around real data, like real data, just less and less about intuition. And I think that is some of those I think you can quantify. Some of those are hard to quantify, but I think in aggregate they are incredibly powerful. And then I haven't even got into like Power Automate and Power Apps and some of the Azure functionality. The other thing I was gonna segue into from that. This is just the new things that have sort of popped up in my mind of late with just all the AI technology that's coming out. The AI technology is just going to put another, the accelerator. It's just going to be another accelerator in this immersion of data, immersion of insights. And I think if you've got everything set up well now, great, because you'll just be able to plug in this AI and it'll just be seamless. But if you haven't, I think you've got to really do it as quickly as possible, because you can just see where this AI technology is going. You're going to be in your PowerPoint, you're going to be in your email, you're going to be in anything, and Microsoft
in
Teams,
browsers,
and you'll be able to just
everywhere.
You'll just be able to type it out. You'll just be able to type it out. You'll be able to like click a button and then just type in something, and it will bring the insight to you. Like, I even think that a lot of the hard stuff about Power BI is probably going to go away soon. I really think that. Maybe not the enterprise sort of modeling part of it, but like DAX formulas and creating reports. Like I just have this sense that that's going to be made a lot easier in the next few years. But you've got to have a solid foundation. You can't just get that off messy data, data that isn't suitable. So I guess I made a few points there, but my new concept I'm sort of just molding in my mind at the moment is one, data immersion being supercharged by AI. I just think that is what's going to happen. But keen to get your thoughts on it. Keen to get your view on that as well.
I would like you brought up some many interesting points, and I would like to expand on this. So I remember I watched in 2015. I watched the first presentation of Power BI. It was already an independent tool, so it was not, Power Designer and some extensions and so on. So it was the standalone product. But when I look from this perspective, in the last 7-8 years, let's say, the road that Power BI passed from that point to this point, where you mentioned those AI stuff, I would say that also going back to what you already mentioned, it's an ecosystem on its own. So the Power BI is an ecosystem on its own, let alone comparing with other products within the whole data platform system. So as you said, it started as a data visualization tool. Now it's a fully blown solution where you have a data modeling part, administration part, DAX, M language in Power Query. So many aspects of that platform, of this ecosystem, that basically now with AI and direction where it goes, I literally believe that it is already now probably end-to-end solution. So you literally can do everything in Power BI from scratch to having the full enterprise grade analytic solution. But with all this AI stuff, I'm curious to see. Honestly, I expect it to break, to ease this barrier for new users of the product, that maybe find, I don't know, some parts, let's say, of DAX or Power Query or M language daunting, and maybe the learning curve is not so good for everyone. So with this AI stuff, I expect that this entry barrier will be removed for many new users.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think that pretty much all of us in the Power BI community, those who create content or do training, is Power BI is amazing, but on the whole, it's still quite difficult. It is still hard to build quality solutions within a business at scale, mainly because there's still this big talent gap to really build high quality stuff. It's easy to create a visualization in Power BI. It's easy to create a report with a table or, just a simple report. It's hard to create a Power BI implementation that works across 7 to 8 different business units and has 200 people who you need to provide reports for, and all your models need to be optimized, and you've got big data to work with. Like there's to bring all that together is hard. It's hard. I've seen it time and time again. I still think it's better than what's gone before, though. So I'm not saying that there's anything. There's nothing better. It's still the best, even if it's done slightly suboptimally. It's still the best. Still the best tool out there. But to get it like really amazing insights that automatically just refresh, and you wake up in the morning and everything's just done for you, and it's done at scale. It's still a bit too hard, I think. And so I'm really hopeful that AI is just going to democratize it more. I'm not even hopeful. I just can see it in the future. I can see it being the case, right? Like these LLMs, they call them large language models. They're just going to automate so much of the even tedious work we do in Power BI, like just knowing what to model, know what formulas to write, know what to do to get the insights you want out of your data. Like it could be a whole combination of things, like that you need to do to get that sort of insight, and it should be able to do a lot of that automatically.
Exactly. And sorry for interrupting you, but while we are on topic, so I recently seen a very useful use case for using ChatGPT for automating stuff. So if you don't trust ChatGPT fully to write DAX for you, or I don't know, some other sort of code, a very interesting use case, you can use it to write description of your measures. So that's thing that we need to spend time doing it manually or writing our own scripts. With ChatGPT, we can automate this process. So that's one of the perfect use cases for the very beginning, for starting to embrace AI stuff in Power BI. Why wasting time, wasting effort when basically with this you don't risk, breaking something, getting non-optimal DAX or some incorrect results in the end. With description, you can start, and then let's see in the next period where all this thing goes. But I can definitely resonate with this. Yeah.
One of the other things that I've recently come to the conclusion is that DAX is not the only way that you can get insights from data, right? There's Python, there's SQL, there's actually other ways you can get the insights. And if the AI can almost select the best way for you, right? Do you have to write DAX? Like that, to me, that's a really solid question, right? Like, if you don't now need to learn all these technologies, these languages, and the AI can just figure out from natural language what is the best way to go and do the calculation. Do you need DAX? Like you could use DAX, but there's a better way to do it. Like it could write the SQL, it could write the Python for you. It could do some machine learning algorithm for you. Like why not? Like I don't think in the future we need to be as prescriptive as, again, this is the only way to do calculations in Power BI now.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. So we all know that whenever you need to write complex DAX, there is a huge chance that you messed up with your data model. So you need to fix things by writing DAX. So maybe this AI thing, I'm not saying that it will replace human brain when it comes to data modeling, but let's be honest, in 70-80% of cases, we have repetitive business models that can be re-implemented and reused across different solutions. So maybe there will be also some kind of AI apply in that area. So for example, I'm building a data model for banking business, bam, so I get created like set of fact and dimension tables in advance, and then I can customize it. I can customize it additionally, of course, if needed. Something in that regard. So that will also reduce the complexity of DAX afterwards.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to see where it all goes. Yeah, but that's something that I think all of us are getting excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I think what you mentioned there is that to get a data initiative to work, there's actually multiple different facets to it, right? And it's going to be so interesting when you apply an AI system to each of those different facets, right? And eventually someone's going to aggregate that, or like probably Microsoft will aggregate it all up, but there's going to be solutions for data modeling. There's going to be solutions for data engineering. There's going to be AI solutions for visualization and analytics. So it's going to be so fascinating. Like there is already work going on in this. Not specifically in Power BI, this example, but I saw that there's a project underway of combining ChatGPT with SQL code. So you don't, so it's, I want to think it's called long chain or something like this. But anyway, I'll have to confirm that with a bit more research. But I watched a quick video, or someone was explaining it to me, and basically what it was doing was you would feed the data into the system, and it wouldn't go and tell you the SQL code to go and write and go and run the analysis. It would work out what the SQL code needed to be based on your question, and then go and run it itself. Like it would go and run the SQL code and then produce the answer in a natural, descriptive way. And to me, I mean, that is just a insight into what's coming. It's not going to tell you the code. It's just going to actually figure out the code and run it.
Like run it instead of you. Yeah. And give you the answer in the language that you will understand.
Yeah.
That's mind blowing. Yeah.
And then if you combine that with, say, like an AI that worked out, okay, just follow on from that. Okay, what visualization would work best with this data? Like that's not too far removed from doing the actual analysis for you. So I mean, that to me seems very doable. And then if you just take that one step further, like, oh well, I'm sure I could work out what a good dashboard would look like, for that particular insight. So man, it's so exciting, and it's daunting at the same time. It's kind of daunting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I can imagine that for data visualization, it will be probably the easiest part for AI to be involved. You just put like I want darker colors, and then it provides for you some type of suggestions. Like this thing I mentioned in PowerPoint, if it's able to create a presentation, so which is mostly based on visuals, colors, fonts, shapes, and so on. So I guess it's also not a problem to transfer this similar logic to Power BI data visualization part.
Yeah. What I'm keen to just pivot a little bit. You've been involved a lot in sort of enterprise architecting of Power BI and data initiatives. I'm keen to get your insights about what are you seeing as sort of best practice out there, and maybe on top of that, what are some of the challenges that you generally face with these more larger enterprise deployments, or I like to call it architecture, architecture of a data solution.
Yeah. So from pure Power BI perspective, most of the challenges are consequence of things we mentioned previously. So poor planning at the beginning, or thinking, I can do this that way and it will work forever. Yes, until it starts to scale. So there are certain things I like to say. Power BI is a kitchen sink. At the very beginning, you can throw whatever you want. It will work fast. You don't notice anything, so you don't need to care about things like star schema, reducing cardinality of columns, and so on and so on. If you have 20,000 rows, it will always work fast. But as soon as you start to build a more complex things, then it's very important to be aware of those let's say recommended way of doing things. So for me also, I'm finding sometimes challenges how to overcome certain situations. For example, there is a requirement to use a direct query always. All the tables are 50 plus million rows. Yeah, users complaining about performance. So they need to be informed how direct query works and what are the downsides, so it's kind of a trade-off. But in any case, the biggest challenges come from poor planning at the very beginning, and also, in those big companies, at least that was my experience. I know I would also like to hear your opinion that when you walk in those huge enterprises, you think that they are doing everything according to recommended practices. Like auto date time is always unchecked. I don't know, many other, let's say, basic things are done, but that's not always the case. So going back and solving those types of things was for me surprising. Not anymore. Now I can expect to see this even in those huge systems. But other than that, it's mostly architectural choices, like when is the right moment to start using aggregated tables, composite models. So when things become so big that you need to find the right balance between those architectural things, or when it's time to change the grain of fact tables, and so on and so on. So I would say from Power BI implementation perspective, that's some of my biggest challenges.
Yeah, right. Look, I've worked in enough big organizations to know that they're not always the most efficient or best, have implemented best practices everywhere. So trust me, I totally get it. I mean, I think that's actually where the most opportunity is, really. Because sometimes it just takes so long to move super tankers, turn super tankers around, right? There's just so much legacy stuff that holds organizations back, and everyone, you need to get everyone reskilled. These things take time. So there's always massive opportunities in large organizations to rework things, to optimize things, all over the place. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners, can fully appreciate that. No doubt. I think one of the thing that comes to mind, kind of things that comes to mind when you go through those, is that there's just not one right way, is there? There is so many. I think there's a few best practices, but there is a lot of this flexibility around that, and that is true in all aspects of data implementations, but very much so in architecting solutions, because it can really depend on the size of the data that you're working with, the amount of times you need to refresh the data. There's just so many different requirements. But one thing I do like to always say about Power BI and Power Platform is it's actually a fantastic iterative tool. So there's no, you can iterate very quickly, right? Like, I don't feel like you had to, with like SAP, for example, you'd go through these like 3-year planning and implementation cycles. Like, yeah. I think that you can, you still want to plan and you still want to have a good strategy, but it's something that you can just jump in and start working towards, and then iterate to the best solution, right? Like, I think that has always been the case with these newer tools that have come out. And I would even say that Power BI have showed us the way, right? They sort of, more Microsoft has showed us the way, right? They're continually iterating on the product. And I think that everyone should take that as a best practice, right? As the iteration is the way to get to the result, rather than planning and then falling behind and not actually getting anything done. So that's sort of it's always been my sort of recommendation. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's I can completely agree with that. So iteration is the key, because you can't be sure if you set things today in a certain way that in 2 months it's still the best possible solution. Not because you did something wrong, but the product is in evolution, constant evolution. So I give you one example which happened to me like maybe a year ago. So I was working on optimizing some Power BI solution, and I used I wrote some DAX to force DAX fusion so that the engine evaluates the measure in one run, in one query, instead of running multiple queries, and it worked fast. And for example, in I think November or December last year, so Microsoft provided that option out of the box. So they built into the engine. So for all the future solutions, you just need to check this box to turn on this so-called horizontal fusion. So you don't need to write DAX anymore. So what used to be maybe a good practice previously, now it's built into the product itself. And that's why I completely agree with what you mentioned, iteration, and keep the pace with product evolution and product development.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much happening, isn't there? Like, and that's across the board. You know, I truly believe that like a lot of data implementations are much more than just Power BI now. You know, I see Power Automate Desktop, Power Apps all being such a key part of this. They're really, you know, I really starting to think. I think you've got to think of all these as one. And I think very soon there's going to be some AI capability that you'll have to think about as well. And even because all of these things are tied together. Just think about how you ultimately want your users to consume and make decisions on this information. Okay, that's the end goal, right? Like, we're not just building all of this for our own pleasure. You know, it's for how do we actually get action? How do we actually drive value from what we're doing, right? And all of these things are, you've got to think, okay, where are users hanging out? Where are users spending their time during the day, right? They're generally spending it in Teams. They're generally spending it in email. Yes, and maybe they're spending it in looking at Power BI reports, right? And so I think that you've got to utilize all these tools because they're what brings everything in together. So it ties it all in together. You know, like, for example, we have some Power BI reports, and we have some Power Automate flows that happen off the back of certain values being reached, right? And then it creates a notification inside of Teams. That's just one example. You can. There was an example that Henry Habib gave at our latest accelerator, where he used an example of where you can now link up ChatGPT to Power Automate, and you can write a question and then get some sort of answer from the data, or from SharePoint, or from an email. So there's the interconnectedness of all of these tools, I think, is just super key. And I try not to think of Power BI in isolation now. I know it is incredibly powerful by itself, but you've got to interlink it with all these other things and go and get the information into the hands of users wherever they are as effectively as you can. So that's how I look at things now.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Teams, so good example. So we are doing like a meeting. There are 15 of us in the meeting, and instead of sending the link for everyone to open the report and see something, you can easily now integrate that directly into Teams. So this type of integration is truly amazing. It's truly amazing, especially with other Power Platform products. I haven't used myself, to be honest, Power Automate and Power Apps, but I heard about many use cases, as you mentioned, when you connect, for example, metrics in Power BI, when certain threshold is reached, Power Automate triggers the notification. So for the end user, it looks like everything is happening, smoothly, and everything running smoothly, and it's like one thing. But under the hood, there are many different components, and that's amazing.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest wins you can have, and just even as an everyday business user, is so much of getting insights is like going to get the data and transforming it, etc. But there's and we've showcased many solutions like this across on our coursework and in our videos, and even with Jarrett Moore, who's one of our experts, that you can automate that process, right? You can automate the retrieval of data and maybe get it into your email, then use Power Automate, and you can do that with Power BI, Power Automate Desktop. Then use Power Automate to send that data into a file or send it into SharePoint. Then you can kick off a refresh of your data flow, which goes and retrieves that data. Then you can that data flow will refresh you can set off the data set refresh, and then all of a sudden your reports are just up to date, like pretty much every hour if you need that, or you just don't have to do any of that manual work. And when you compound that across various different people in your team, I think that's quite transformational. And so that's why I guess why I'm going through that example is to sort of just highlight, I think it's an ecosystem now. It's a true ecosystem that I think we've got to think more broadly than just Power BI. I think you've still got to build solid foundations across all of that, but I think that there is some amazing things and compounding things that you can do across various different toolings that we have available to us now.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
What's tell me like what are some other insights that you've had along the way the last couple of years? Some of the other interesting things that you've been involved in, some of the other interesting things that you're coming across that you see adding value and making an impact.
Yeah. So if we move from Power BI world, I would say that the most recent fuss and buzz is around this data lakehouse concept. So recently I'm being approached by many people asking what is my opinion about data lakehouse, should they implement it in their organizations, and so on and so on. And I would say there are many, of course, experts around who already elaborated on this topic. So just to give my 2 cents, it's an interesting approach, definitely has its place, and I think it will have more and more place in the future. But my main advice is not for that is not for everyone. And when I'm being approached by, let's say, small to medium-sized company that stores their data in a traditional way, so in a relational data warehouse, creating data marts, data malls on top of that. So I would say, why would you consider using data lakehouse? So data lakehouse has its obvious advantages. Mostly if you have huge amounts of data, if you have unstructured data, if you have people in your organization who need direct access to this data that you stored in data lake, then of course it makes sense. It's cheaper to store the data in lake than in a data warehouse. It makes sense. But if you have, like, I don't know, 50 gigabytes of data, that's nothing. So you don't even need massively parallel processing systems. You can do it in if you are on-prem in SQL Server, if you are in cloud, for example, on Azure SQL DB. So you don't need to follow all those fancy patterns and let's go, everyone, let's jump into data lakehouse concept. As I said, it's a good concept. It has its own place at this moment, and it will have more and more place in the future, especially because there are more and more data structures that are not possible to store in a traditional way like we used to do for decades. So for all this stuff makes sense. If you have like traditional relational data coming to your system, then my question is why? Why do you need it? So that's something that recently I got approached by many different people from different backgrounds, from different organization sizes, let's say, asking about that approach, because that's now the hot topic in our area.
It's interesting. I think it would be good to just take a step back for a second and say, okay, and maybe just if you could just give us a quick overview of like what the difference is, because there's a database, there's a data warehouse, there's a data lake, and now there's a data lakehouse. So I want to understand, even from my own personal benefit, what is the true difference between, I can kind of get the difference between a data lake and a database, but like maybe just for everyone, just give us a good explanation of the difference between all of these things.
Yeah, what I like about this data lakehouse is the name, because it's easy to understand. It's a combination of data lake and data warehouse. So that's why I think Databricks came up with this name, data lakehouse. Essentially, you still store the data in the lake, but you give it characteristics of relational databases. So you have transaction logging you have this ACID type of forcing some rules on the files that are stored in the lake. In classic data lake, so you just store files as it is. And when the new version of file is coming, you need to overwrite the old one, or you need to keep both versions, and so on and so on. With the data lakehouse concept, basically they added transaction logic to Parquet files. Now it's called Delta format, and all the changes are being stored. So it's kind of, I like to put it that way for people who are not so familiar with different terms. It's a relational database in the data lake. So you have all the benefits of relational databases within the data lake, on top of files in data lake.
Right. So just so that even just the data lake, I think, is probably a foreign concept to some of us. And correct me if I'm wrong, because this was always my understanding of the data lake. Data lake was just a way to bring in
it's a
lots
folder,
of data.
like you have like a folder structure.
Yeah.
You can store the data in whatever format you want.
Yeah.
CSVs.
And it's just everything. Just
videos.
Just dump
whatever.
it all in. Dump it all into this.
This
one
in the
one
folder structure. Exactly.
Yeah.
In the folder structure, it's cheap. It can store everything. So it has its obvious benefits for organizations that deal with those types of data. Not for everyone, as I said.
It still provides you, and the benefit of this is it still brings a central depository of all of these things, right? Rather than having them just sort of scattered everywhere in all of these different systems, you're still bringing it into one area, but it's all they're all sort of different types of data. It's just different things, and you can then use that as your central sort of dictionary, if you like, or central system, and then you can grab whatever you need it for, whatever use case that you have, and then maybe you can do the sort of modeling after that point.
Yes. So it's a kind of
having
raw
like a
data.
Prescriptive. Instead of having very prescriptive way of that you need to build a data warehouse this exact way with these, with this relationship data model. It's just more raw. It's sort of a more raw central depository of information.
Exactly. In this, also Databricks has its, I think, in this white paper, when they explain what is a data lakehouse, they also talk about medallion structure. So you have like 3 stages for when you are dealing with data. And this first stage, when you just, dump data into data lake, this raw data, based later on what you need from this data, you decide, for example, maybe you want to import some of the data from the files, from structured files, let's say from CSVs, to a relational data warehouse. Then with those video files, or maybe you have some log data, you want to use some other tool to analyze log data, or from IoT devices, data coming from IoT devices, and so on and so on. So you can't store this data so easily in the relational data warehouse. So basically, after you dump it into the data lake, you still need some kind of strategy. What should I do with this data, and how to leverage it in best possible way? So that's where this next step of data lakehouse, this concept comes into the place. And
it's I think a good parallel is, so some might be thinking, well, why can't I just do that with files on my computer, right? So it's I can dump anything into a folder in my computer, right, and it's all just sort of meshed up there all together. But it comes down to volume. So yes, you could do that if your volumes were small and you only had like Excel files with 50,000 rows, and other files that with imagery and stuff. But once you get into like millions and hundreds of millions and tens of much bigger numbers, that doesn't make sense. You got to have much more enterprise infrastructure around that. And so that's where the sort of data lake come from. And then it looks like there's a small evolution happening around how to manage that as well.
Yes, and talking about managing this data, for example, what Microsoft offers through Azure Synapse Analytics platform is using serverless SQL pool, which is exactly, or let's say primarily built for that you can query the data from data lake directly by writing SQL code, so T-SQL code. So basically you have data, let's say in CSV file, and then you write a SQL code to query data from the CSV file. That's what reduces time to analysis. You don't, previously you would have to, set up some ETL process to move this data from CSV file in data lake to your relational data warehouse, and then you write SQL query to query that data. Now you are reducing this time. You can directly pull the data from CSV files, and that kind of provides a lot of different opportunities to handle this data in many different ways, and that's something that I see as a good step in adoption of, let's say, those new technologies that came into in the last, let's say, 2 years or so.
So what? So tell me your view on this. What's stopping some AI overlay being on top of the data lake going forward? Like in Power BI, or even just in Microsoft Teams, like if you can do that now, what's stopping an everyday user from being able to do that? Just completely bypassing the model, completely bypassing, having to build a visualization. Is there anything like in your mind that could really stop that from happening?
So you can, at this moment, you can run machine learning things directly on data lake. So those things already exist. Regarding AI, I'm not seeing any blockers. So if you mentioned that there is a application or I don't know, something that writes SQL code for you and answers the question. So essentially, because I'm working mostly with Synapse, I will give you an example in Synapse. In the end, if you are querying data from the file using SQL, then I guess this application can be adjusted to use the similar logic, to write the SQL code for you and get you the answer straight from the data lake. Yeah, in the end, it's just SQL. So yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure there's some like computation considerations there. You don't want everyone just like writing queries and don't do this massive compute. So there would need to be something there. But my thoughts around that is that I think when most people hear Azure Synapse, they're like, oh wow, that's too hard for me. I don't want to have to get my head into that. Azure is this fancy thing that only database professionals know anything about, or like real IT professionals. But I think it sounds like it's sort of technically possible. It just needs a new UI. The UI needs to change for the everyday business user to be able to do that. That's kind of exciting. Like if you can even bypass the model and the AI, like say for instance, you have this massive transaction table, right? The only, if you were to do analysis, like any sort of time-based or time series analysis inside of Power BI right now with that big transactional data, the only thing that you're usually missing from that transactional table is a date table, right? That's really the only thing that you're usually missing. I don't see why that date table couldn't just be sort of an in-memory thing, right? Like it just could not be. Why could Microsoft not just have why does everyone have to create their own date table? Like why isn't there just
I understand why I can just click on the button and have date table in Vertipack provided for me.
The most amazing date table you could ever want, right? Like it should just all be built in. I mean, I have no doubt. I mean, it's gotta happen, right? Like I can't believe that one simple thing is just not totally automated. But anyway, why not have that just totally built into some analytical engine? Maybe it's Vertipack, maybe it's like something else. And then all that time series analysis could be done directly with the data lake and could be done anywhere. Like why does it have to be done in Power BI? Why does it have to be done in Power BI desktop? Why can't it be just done in Microsoft Teams? Or why can't it just be done with this new UI that could be called, Data Copilot or something? I mean, it seems logical. It seems logical that could be a direction that things are headed.
Seems logical to me as well. So maybe they're working on it. Maybe we just need to be patient a little more. But sounds logical. Completely makes sense.
Well, we're we've actually been going to close to an hour, which is pretty amazing. It doesn't feel that way.
Oh, that's really, time flies. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So what's some final thoughts? What are some things that we've talked about a lot of exciting things, but what are some exciting things that you're doing, or some exciting things that you see on the horizon for yourself and also for the data community?
Oh, it's not so exciting like the things we were discussing in previous almost hour. So yeah, for me personally, yeah, just continue trying to share as much as I can with the community. I have this opinion that I learned a lot from community, and I'm still learning a lot from community. So it's kind of, doing this circle and giving back to someone else, to motivate someone else also to share the knowledge, the experience. And for me personally, so continue working on blogs, doing some free stuff like we did Power BI Bootcamp. And once again, thanks to you and Brian for supporting this initiative last year. All of us truly appreciate that. So that's mostly my focus today. So yeah, digging deep into other new features that are on the horizon. And yeah.
What do you want to just expand on what the data bootcamp was?
Yeah, so we did the last autumn, from October to December. We ran a free Power BI bootcamp for women and people who can't afford paid training. And yeah, so it started like a small initiative. First, I planned to do it on my own, and I expected to have like 15 individuals attending this Power BI bootcamp. But then I got 82 applications. So I got help from our fellow community members, Pragati, Andrea, Augustin, and Mohammed. 5 of us each took one group of 15 people. We did it 3 months. Wow. So in the end, all of them who completed the Power BI bootcamp, they had a dashboard that they built on their own. They got some basic understanding of Power BI as a tool, as a main concepts when it comes to working with Power BI. And we are really proud that we got your help in supporting them with continuing. Basically, we provided them with, like a baby steps. Now you have like a free access to Enterprise DNA, amazing learning platform. Go there and deepen your knowledge on DAX, on Power Query, or whatever most interests you. So yeah, that was the initiative. Yeah,
that's awesome. How can we make this bigger? How can we turn this from 80 to 8,000? That's what I want to know. What do you think it would take to get there?
Wonderful question. Yeah. So last week I was at SQL Bits conference in Wales, where I presented the session with Pragati, one of group leaders, with exactly the same idea. Let's spread the word about that, and let's include more people into this initiative. So as you said, let's start with 80, maybe not 8,000 next year, but let's have it at least 300, 400. That's already a huge success. So after our session, a lot of people came to us and told us, I want to get involved in this. Let me know, how can I help? So basically we need to somehow scale it now. That's the idea.
Well, I think we're Enterprise Data. I mean, I'm so behind this. I'm so behind it, and we can put our marketing and network into it. So, we could really talk it up through our social media, or our YouTube, email, our user base. We could really get the word out.
You definitely have a huge, bigger reach than ourselves. So that would be amazing.
That's something that I think we should really collaborate on for the rest of the year, because it's something that we could even put on our website as something that we really truly support. It could be one of our big things that we I mean, it just makes total sense that we support this even more and try and make it as big as you want it to be. I mean, I don't, it seems
no. It's a community. It's a community activity. So I don't have any personal benefits, in terms of,
Well, it's more time. I'm more worried about time commitments, organizing it all. That's more
but
what
now
I'm
we
about.
basically have materials, have everything. So it's just, adjusting these materials. So we see that some topics were maybe too complex for complete beginners. So yeah, maybe to adjust a little bit those materials and then just scale it to include more people, because the response was amazing, really. And there was no happier person than me, because after the bootcamp we still continue communication with those people through Slack channel. And one lady wrote that she got a job literally month after the bootcamp. I don't know if it was because of the bootcamp or just like coincidence, but yes, she made it. And that was the idea, to enable people to get into the industry, to get better jobs, to get promoted, to feel more confident. Those are some really heartbreaking stories now. And I say, okay, I live in well-developed country in Europe, and most of the things you take for granted when you live in developed country. We had stories from other parts of the world, like China, India. Those are some cultural differences. So, for example, if you are a woman in India, in most cases, parents decide what you are going to study, or if you are going to study anything, or just stay at home. So we had ladies like 30 years old that studied something that they didn't want. Now they want to switch to data analysis. So different kind of backgrounds, and really it's energizing, and it's super rewarding when you find out that you managed to help someone to reach their goals.
Yeah, I love it. I honestly, and I've said this on many podcasts, I don't think there is any more important skills to learn going forward, even when you look at what is happening with all of this new technology and AI stuff that's coming up, than data analysis, automation, and application development. I honestly, is there anything, like I remember, when in any organization, anyone who sits behind a computer, they're involved in analysis, they're involved in automated processes, they need to automate, and they work with, applications and data, right? Like, I think that is like 90% of what everyone does. And so I cannot think of anything that's more important to reskill yourself on than this sort of data landscape that we're sort of working in. And I just think it's been accelerated, the need to upskill everyone on all of this new tooling. It's kind of like, I would liken it exactly to like when Excel sort of really started emerging, right? Like, if you didn't really know how to write a sum formula in Excel, you were just sort of left behind. And I think, it's the same thing, but supercharged. Like it's been totally accelerated. If you don't know how to use AI in combination with Power BI and data storytelling and data analysis and data automation, like I think you're just going to be left behind. Like there's just no doubt in my mind about that.
Absolutely.
And then when I really think about the impact of that, I think there's probably hundreds of millions of people who need sort of help learning this in this area. Hundreds of millions. So if enterprise DNA can make it that's our stated goal, is to really impact that. But if we can do that for everyone, even if they can't afford a subscription, even if they are just not in a situation where they can invest the money, but if they can invest the time, I want to be right there supporting.
Exactly. That was my motivation. So having not enough money to pay for learning shouldn't be a blocker. So if someone wants to learn, let's help them learn. That was my motivation. I'm paying for resources. I'm paying for learning resources because I can and I want to support content creators, obviously. But it's hard to, tell someone who is earning $300 or $400 per month to pay $200 for quality training.
Yeah,
maybe they want, but they can't. Yeah, they are.
Well, one thing I'll mention for those who've made it to the end of this recording is Enterprise DNA has actually moved recently. We've kind of done it secretly, just for the time being, to a geographic pricing model. So if you go to our pricing page on our website now, you'll see that everything is priced in a local currency. So if you have your own currency like euros or Indian rupees or Mexican pesos or Canadian dollars or US dollars, it's all you're based in that geography. It's priced in your currency. And what we've done is we've weighted the pricing based on average wage in that particular region. And so we've totally changed it around in the last month or so. It's sort of just been done a bit secretly, but we've tried to make it ourselves more achievable. So those in Asia, those in Africa, those in South America, where historically it might have felt quite expensive, we've reduced it by about 75% in some cases, some pricing.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
because $100 is not the same in every part of the world. It's $100 US dollars.
Exactly.
Or
yeah. So we've done a huge weighting process of going through every different currency. We could find every different global region, and we have this fancy technology that picks up your IP address when you come to our website and does an estimate of where you are, and then gives you an automated price based on where you are. It's pretty cool that we're able to do that, I must say. But the key thing is it's made it more achievable for everyone around the world. So, if you're willing to invest the time, there is opportunity for you. And to be honest, like anytime, if someone wants to train and they write us an email, I'm happy to say that if you're really desperate not desperate, but just, really feel like it's expensive, just write us an email. We're always happy to sponsor and give scholarships and things like that. So I just want to put that out there.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the community.
Pleasure. And we want to do a lot more. We've got a lot of really exciting initiatives ourselves coming on, and we're going to rapidly expand our content base as well. So we've got some cool things going on too, which I won't mention now, but in due course.
Awesome.
Anything else, Nikola? Anything else? We just keep. We could probably talk for longer.
Yes, it was a really pleasure, and for me, time flew by. Yeah. Thanks for this interesting talk. Nothing special from my side. I just wanted to thank you once again for inviting me for your podcast. It was really enjoyable talking to. As you said, it could take much longer, but yeah. Oh, look, we'll have to do it again. I think there's some fascinating things that we talked about today, and I'm sure we'll have it in the future. I mean, I want to get right behind the bootcamp initiative that you're running. So, maybe as it draws nearer throughout this year, we could jump on another podcast and really talk about the whole initiative and how we could really expand it effectively. So keen to do that. But in any case, thank you for today's podcast. Really enjoyed the chat, and I think we covered some really valuable stuff. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for listening.
Cool. Okay, I'm just going to round it off. Thanks all, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate all your collaboration and connection through the podcast. It's been really cool to talk to a whole range of different people, and really enjoyed today's session with Nikola. Okay, I'm just going to round off for today. Thanks, Nikola.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's great to be connected, and I hope you are enjoying the content we're creating through the Analytic Mind podcast. If you enjoyed this session, make sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of each episode as we release them. If you want to learn more about Enterprise DNA and the many initiatives we're working on, check out www.enterprisedna.co. There we have a range of resources to download, events to attend, and information to explore. We're leading the charge around this new paradigm we're living in, where tools like Power BI can literally change how an organization manages, analyzes, and distributes insights that can make an impact. It's an exciting moment in the analytics space. So glad that you're on this journey with us. Take care.